There comes a moment after the storm when the silence feels heavier than the chaos that came before it. You start to wonder why they haven't called, why they haven't texted, why someone who once fought to keep your attention now seems completely indifferent to your absence. The truth is, this silence isn't peace, it's strategy. Narcissists crave control, and one of their most subtle yet powerful tools is getting you to make the first move. They know the longer they stay quiet, the more anxious you become, the more your mind spirals into guilt, self, blame, and confusion. It isn't that they miss you, it's that they want to confirm they still own emotional real estate inside your head. When you reach out first, it tells them the manipulation worked. It tells them they still have a hold on you even when they're not around. That message, that call, that moment of weakness is their silent victory. But this is also where your transformation begins, because awareness changes everything. The very moment you understand the psychology behind their silence, you take back the power they've been feeding on. You stop chasing closure from the person who created the wound, and instead, you begin to give that closure to yourself. You see, they want you to reach out because it reopens the door you were meant to close. It resets their control, but when you learn to sit in the silence without breaking, you do something they never expected. You grow beyond the need for their validation. You start to value your peace more than their presence. And that's when the power shifts, not because you fought back, not because you explained yourself one more time, but because you chose not to play their game anymore. There's a reason the silence after a narcissist disappears feels almost unbearable. It's not just absence, it's a calculated power play. They understand that silence can scream louder than words. When they withdraw, they aren't reflecting or healing, they are watching. They are waiting to see how long it takes for you to unravel, to question yourself, to wonder what you did wrong. This is not about missing you. It's about maintaining control. Every minute you spend wondering where they went or what changed becomes fuel for their ego. They have conditioned you to associate their attention with your worth. So when it's gone, your mind automatically rushes to fill the void with self. Blame. They know that silence creates anxiety. It makes you question your reality, your memory, your emotions. It's psychological warfare dressed up as distance. By making you wait, by leaving you hanging in uncertainty, they reassert dominance without ever lifting a finger. Because the moment you reach out first, when you send that message, when you ask if something's wrong, when you try to fix what they broke, they win. You confirm their power. You show that you're still emotionally tethered to them, still craving validation from the very person who fractured your peace. And that's exactly the control they seek. They don't need to chase. They manipulate you into doing it for them. But here's where your strength begins to rewrite the story. When you recognize the game, you stop being a player in it. You start to see the silence for what it truly is, a trap disguised as peace. You begin to realize that what hurts isn't their absence, but the illusion that your worth depends on their response. The truth is, your silence is just as powerful as theirs, but yours comes from awareness, not control. Theirs is meant to provoke weakness. Yours can become a statement of healing. Every time you resist the urge to reach out, you reclaim another piece of yourself. Every moment you sit with the discomfort without reacting, you teach your nervous system that peace is not found in their presence. It's found in your stillness eventually. Their silence loses its grip because it no longer serves its purpose. The very power they once held begins to dissolve when you stop feeding it. You start to understand that the person who truly values you would never find satisfaction in watching you break. They would reach out, communicate, repair, and care. The narcissist waits for you to break because that's when they feel most in control. But when you no longer respond the way they expect, you become the one in control of the narrative. You shift from being the one who is watched to the one who watches calmly, as their tactics lose their effectiveness. And that's when silence stops being punishment and starts becoming your protection. There is a certain kind of control that doesn't shout. It whispers through acts that look like care. When a narcissist pulls away and then reappears with concern in their tone, it's rarely about your well-being. It's about reestablishing dominance under the disguise of compassion. They know how to make distance work for them. They vanish just long enough for you to start questioning yourself, and when they return, they present themselves as the one who understands you best. They play both roles, the one who creates the wound and the one who pretends to heal it. That is how they twist distance into domination. It's a cycle designed to make you depend on them for both pain and relief, leaving you trapped in emotional confusion at first. Their concern feels genuine. They ask how you've been. They seem to care about your stress, your sadness, your struggles. But beneath that surface lies their true motive, control through emotional access. They want to know if you've moved on, if you still care, if they can still pull the strings they once did. Every soft, spoken question, every sympathetic gesture is a quiet test of power. They are not checking in out of love. They are checking in to see if the control still works. When you open the door, even slightly, they walk back in with the same tactics that left you doubting yourself before. It's not connection they seek. It's confirmation that they still matter more than your peace. The hardest part of seeing through this manipulation is that it comes wrapped in what looks like kindness. You want to believe they've changed. You want to believe that distance gave them clarity, that their return is proof of growth. But what often follows is the same pattern of criticism, blame, and withdrawal. The concern fades as soon as they feel secure in their power again. This is not love that heals. It is control that resets. Once you recognize this, everything shifts. You start to notice the timing of their concern, the way it always comes when you're finally starting to move forward, when you've found some quiet within yourself. Their reappearance is not random. It's a strategic move to disrupt your progress. Your strength comes from recognizing that real care doesn't need control to exist. Genuine love gives space. It doesn't manipulate it. When you start responding with awareness instead of emotion, the game ends. You no longer chase their approval or mistake manipulation for affection. You learn to sit with your own silence and to trust that healing doesn't require their validation. Every time you resist the urge to respond to their false concern, you build another layer of self-respect. Over time, their distance stops being something that destabilizes you and becomes something that frees you. Because the truth is, they can only dominate when you let their concern redefine your worth. Once you stop giving that power away, their control dissolves into the distance they created. There's a reason narcissists leave situations open-ended, why conversations never reach resolution, and why you're left chasing explanations that never come. It's not forgetfulness or emotional immaturity. It's the ego's hunger for control, and it feeds on your need for closure. They understand something most people don't. As long as you're searching for answers, you're still emotionally invested. Your longing for understanding becomes the very energy they feed on. Every time you replay the last conversation, every time you wonder what you could have said differently, you keep them alive in your mind. And that's exactly what they want. To occupy space within you long after they've gone silent. The need for closure is deeply human. It's how we make sense of chaos, how we bring peace to pain. But when it comes to a narcissist, closure is a tool of manipulation. They leave things unsaid, give half-truths and mix affection with cruelty because they know it keeps you guessing. They want you to chase clarity while they remain the keeper of confusion. The more you seek understanding, the more power they hold. They withhold apologies, avoid accountability, and watch you twist yourself into knots trying to decode their behavior. To them, this isn't emotional chaos. It's affirmation that they still control your emotional world. Their ego thrives not on your hate or love, but on your continued attention. But there comes a moment when you begin to see the pattern for what it truly is, an endless loop designed to keep you stuck. You realize that the closure you're waiting for will never come, not because you don't deserve it, but because their sense of power depends on denying it to you. That realization hurts at first. It feels like giving up on justice, on fairness, on being understood. Yet it's the beginning of your freedom. True closure doesn't come from the person who broke you. It comes from deciding that your peace matters more than their explanation. It's choosing to stop giving your energy to a story that only drains you. It's closing the book, not because the ending was satisfying, but because the story no longer deserves another page. When you stop feeding their ego with your need for closure, something inside you shifts. You begin to reclaim the parts of yourself that were scattered in confusion. You stop rehearsing conversations in your mind and start speaking compassion to your own heart. The silence that once felt unbearable starts to feel sacred. You realize you don't need their words to heal. You need your own. Every unanswered question becomes less about them and more about the lesson. And as the hunger of their ego starves without your attention, your soul begins to flourish in the peace that follows. Because closure was never about getting their truth. It was always about finding yours. There comes a point when exhaustion turns into awakening. You stop asking why they behave the way they do and start realizing that your healing doesn't depend on their change. Emotional detachment isn't about coldness or indifference. It's about taking your power back. It's the quiet realization that not every battle deserves your energy, not every wound needs their acknowledgement to heal. Narcissists thrive on emotional reaction. Whether you love them, hate them, defend yourself, or plead for understanding, it's all the same to them. It means you're still engaged, still playing the game. Detachment breaks that cycle. It removes the fuel their ego depends on and replaces chaos with calm. It's not revenge, it's release. When you detach, you stop looking for logic in their behavior. You accept that manipulation, blame, shifting, and guilt, tripping are part of their control strategy. Instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of explaining, you choose silence. This doesn't make you weak, it makes you untouchable. Emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of it. It's knowing when to step back and protect your peace instead of proving your point. It's understanding that your energy is sacred and that not everyone deserves access to it. When you learn to regulate your emotions instead of letting them use them against you, you reclaim something they never wanted you to have. Control over your inner world. The narcissist's power crumbles when they can no longer provoke a reaction. Their words lose weight when you stop needing to defend yourself. Their silent treatments lose sting when you no longer seek their attention. They begin to realize that the buttons they used to press no longer work. And that's when the tables truly turn. The silence that once felt like punishment becomes your protection. You start to see that peace is not found in fixing them, but in freeing yourself from their grasp. You no longer chase closure, validation, or understanding. You stand in your own truth, even if it goes unacknowledged. Detachment doesn't erase your empathy. It simply directs it inward where it belongs, in that space of emotional neutrality. You rediscover your strength. You stop reacting out of pain and start responding from wisdom. You see through the patterns that once confused you and no longer feel the urge to participate. You learn that true power isn't loud, it's calm, grounded, and consistent. Detachment allows you to love yourself in the way they never could. to choose silence over chaos and peace over validation. And in doing so, you become something they can't control, a person who no longer dances to the rhythm of their manipulation, but walks steadily to the beat of self-respect. There is a quiet power that comes from choosing not to respond, not to explain, not to chase the validation that once felt essential for survival. Narcissists count on your need to be understood, to fix what's broken, to prove your worth through their approval. They know how to weaponize your empathy, how to turn your kindness into a weakness, and how to make silence feel like punishment. But there comes a point in your healing where silence stops being a wound and becomes your shield. It's the moment you realize that peace doesn't come from being heard by them. It comes from listening to yourself. Silence becomes strength when you no longer need their acknowledgement to feel seen. The narcissist's greatest fear is losing control over how you see yourself. As long as they can keep you explaining, apologizing, or defending, they maintain the illusion of superiority. They rely on your reactions to feel significant. But when you stop feeding that cycle, when you step back and let your stillness speak louder than their chaos, you disrupt their power entirely. Silence, in this sense, is not avoidance. It's mastery. It's the quiet statement that you have nothing left to prove. You are no longer available for manipulation disguised as conversation, or for affection that comes with conditions. You start to understand that not every attack deserves a counterattack, not every insult deserves clarity, and not every distance deserves pursuit at first. Your silence will confuse them. They'll test it. They'll provoke guilt or charm, desperate to reignite your emotional reaction. But when you remain calm, they are forced to confront something they cannot control, your detachment. That's when their tactics lose effectiveness because they can no longer draw energy from your pain. Silence breaks the pattern they depend on. It shifts the dynamic from reaction to reflection, and suddenly they're left facing their own emptiness without your attention to distract them. Your refusal to chase or explain becomes a mirror that reflects their own lack of substance, and that truth is something they cannot bear to face in choosing silence. You are not giving up. You are rising above. You are teaching yourself that your worth isn't negotiable, and that validation is an inside job. You begin to feel peace in spaces that once felt unbearable. The silence that once echoed with longing now hums with clarity. You see how far you've come, how strong you've become simply by not reacting. You realize that self-respect isn't loud. It's steady, deliberate, and quiet. And in that quiet, you rediscover your voice, the one that speaks not to them, but to you, reminding you that the strongest people are not those who fight to be heard, but those who are brave enough to walk away without needing to be understood the journey through the maze of manipulation, control, and emotional games leads to one profound truth. Your peace is not dependent on anyone else. Every moment spent chasing validation, explaining yourself, or reacting to their tactics only feeds the cycle they rely on. When you choose to step back, to hold your silence, and to honor your boundaries, you reclaim a power they can never touch. Strength is not measured by how much you can endure from them, but by how firmly you refuse to let their actions define your worth. In that space of clarity, you begin to feel a liberation you may never have imagined. You stop seeking approval, stop negotiating your value, and stop sacrificing your peace for their temporary comfort. Your energy becomes yours again, no longer scattered to prop up their ego or justify their behavior. Every unanswered text, every withheld reaction, every moment of deliberate calm becomes a declaration. You are no longer available for manipulation. You are no longer bound by their games, and you are no longer defined by their perception of you. The silence that once felt unbearable transforms into your greatest strength. It is a fortress built from awareness, self-respect, and inner peace. And within that fortress, you finally stand free, whole, and untouchable, no longer chasing what was never meant to be yours.